Sevhead Creative at sevhead.com presents the audio web series Epyphany, Born from the Sea, written and produced by Don Sev Severance and narrated by Professor Proteus. Episode 7, Chapter 15, An Offer. Days after the unsettling images from Thoreau's video disrupted her corporate karma, Saja still struggled to focus on her strategy. She knew Thoreau was just as committed to his cause as she was to Pisces' profits. She admired his visionary nature, but recognized that she was a realist. While she had vision, it was a narrow, focused beam shining solely on her bright future. Saja knew from experience that everyone had their price, but Thoreau was different. When it came to material wealth, he had little interest in acquiring things unless they were truly useful. He always chose tools over toys, efficiency over luxury, and progress over profits. Saja suddenly had a thought. If he couldn't be bought, perhaps he could be rented. She would create a new research facility to study and implement some of his recommendations and put him in charge. With a generous budget and the freedom to staff it with his environmentalist buddies, maybe he could save Pisces some money while he tried to save the world. In her mind, it was a win-win. He gets to do his thing. She gets to use his good name, keep him under her thumb, and maybe even in her bed. She had her staff crunch the numbers, gather facts, and put together a proposal. Within hours, she had a general outline for an entirely new division, and within days, she had the board ready to champion her cause. Between Thoreau's international reputation and her winning streak at the company, convincing them wasn't difficult. Thoreau had left town for a few days after his presentation in Saja's office. She had been quiet and distant when he left, and he was apprehensive, unsure of his next move. He didn't want to pressure her, but he felt that every day of indecision brought the planet one step closer to disaster. Governments around the world were spinning their wheels. Saja, with her influence at Pisces, was his best hope. Upon his return, he received a text from her apologizing. She was tied up in a meeting and would have to meet him later for cocktails at her place. Saja was certain he would head straight to his ship, go to his lab, and check in with Samu on the research progress. Then he'd grab a snifter of rum, take a walk around the deck to the pool, and after a short swim, change into casual clothes before heading to the galley for a light supper. By now, she knew his routine well. Sometimes she caught herself feeling jealous of the Samudra Hantu, but it was in her best interest to let him relax on his beloved Samu for a while. After checking in with Samu and enjoying a swim, Thoreau felt more at ease. He considered putting business aside for the evening and simply enjoying a pleasant night with Saja. His stomach reminded him that he hadn't eaten since morning, so he headed to the galley. Just as he was about to check the fridge, the lights dimmed and smooth retro funk began playing through Samu's state-of-the-art sound system. The fridge screen switched from inventory mode to a colorful pattern of abstract designs, and then words floated into view. "I thought I'd surprise you. Your dinner is ready on the upper deck." Thoreau was taken aback. Samu didn't usually presume anything. Though she was like a friend, she was still a computer and typically adhered to her programming. He decided to address that later. For now, he was thankful and hungry. Saja had opted to keep things casual. It was a warm night, so she wore a simple, short cotton romper with halter straps and a low neckline. She didn't want it to look like she was trying to seduce him into a decision, but she knew the outfit would keep her assets on the bargaining table. She had hired a chef to prepare a simple yet diverse menu to suit whatever mood Thoreau might be in. This might be her one shot to present the proposal under the best possible circumstances, and she wasn't leaving anything to chance. When Thoreau reached the upper deck, he saw Saja and stopped in his tracks. He shook his head and laughed out loud. "I should have known. A very nice surprise indeed. What's the occasion?" Saja smiled. "Let me see. It's a beautiful summer evening. I was a little off when you left and I missed you." "Is that enough?" "That works. You look beautiful, and I'm hungry." In more ways than one. They enjoyed an incredible meal, keeping the conversation light, sprinkled with laughter and a little flirting. Saja was having so much fun, she hesitated to risk ruining the mood. But then she thought, if not now, when? The chef left the boat a happy man, satisfied with his kudos and a generous bonus. The cheerful couple had the ship to themselves as they sat quietly, savouring an after-dinner drink. Saja began to tingle with desire, her thoughts drifting away from business. As she stared at Thoreau, who was gazing at the sky, she yearned to feel his hands on her neck, to press her body against his. She was about to ask him to dance when he turned to her and said, "This is such a lovely evening, and I hope I don't completely destroy the mood. I feel so close to you right now. One of the many reasons I care for you is that I can be totally honest with you. Have you had time to consider any of the recommendations I presented a few days ago?" Snap! It was as if a bolt of lightning struck her. Saja did her best to hide the shock. She should have been glad for the opening, but she had been so lost in the magical fog of longing that it took her a moment to get her bearings. Saja stuttered, Yes, I have. I've given it a great deal of thought. I've had some of my brightest associates put together a proposal for you." Chapter 16. Dance with the Devil. Saja had Thoreau's full attention. He was in a good mood and had even broached the question himself. She had prepared meticulously, knowing this wasn't her typical business environment. No laptop, no charts, just the proposal, committed to memory. It was crucial that Thoreau saw her as an enthusiastic partner in this venture. She needed him to believe that the video had profoundly affected her. As Saja began to speak, Thoreau leaned in, impressed by her speed and efficiency in gathering so much information. Her intense focus, obvious interest, and the urgency of the task at hand captivated him. He found himself staring at her, mesmerized by her intelligence and her dazzling beauty. The full moon reflected in her sparkling grey eyes. He was jolted out of his trance when she mentioned working for Pisces. "I'm sorry, I got a little distracted by the moonlit glow and the most beautiful woman I know. What were you saying about Pisces?" Saja smiled. "Maybe we should have this conversation tomorrow. It's such a gorgeous evening." She hoped he would agree. Inside, she knew that with just the slightest touch from Thoreau, she'd have her arms wrapped around him in an instant. But Thoreau said, "No, let's continue. This is really important." As she explained her plans to create a well-funded environmental division within Pisces Corp, Thoreau began to sober up. The mention of autonomy and a hands-off approach made him apprehensive. It reminded him of past conversations with women who eventually proposed. Though he knew she wasn't talking about marriage, he almost feared letting her continue. Yet he couldn't deny that Saja seemed genuinely committed to this vision for Pisces' future and the planet's well-being. Finally, nearly out of breath, she got to the point. "I have the full backing of the board and a unanimous vote of confidence from the shareholders. We're offering you the position of Chief Scientific Officer, head of our new Environmental Impact Division, with full authority to design, implement, and oversee it. Wait. Before you respond, the role comes with significant compensation, benefits, and company shares. You could effect real change for both Pisces and the planet." You and me, Thoreau, we could change the world. Thoreau's first thought was, I was right. Marriage, in bed with Pisces. As she reached into her pocket for the vape, Saja said, Take a few days to think about it. She took a hit and handed it to Thoreau. He took a long, slow toke, letting the smoke fill his lungs, grateful for the momentary silence. Saja refilled their glasses, then stood and moved behind him to rub his shoulders. In the quiet, they both gazed at the moon. For the next few hours, they had no trouble separating business from pleasure. Chapter 17. 10 days later. Thoreau wrestled with doubts about Saja's sincerity. Though she had never outright lied to him, he had seen her manipulate the truth to achieve her goals. Now she was at the helm of Pisces, a corporation notorious for its ruthless acquisitions. How could he separate the woman he cared for from her business persona? As he scrutinized the details of the proposal, he found himself both tempted and hesitant. Why did they need him so badly? Why were they willing to spend so much? Was his name really worth that much, or did they just want to control his influence? The decision weighed heavily on him. Saja wasn't known for her patience, and it was starting to strain their personal relationship. Over a week had passed, and Saja still had no idea what Thoreau was thinking. To her, he would be a fool to pass up such a lucrative deal. She wanted this so badly that she may have lost perspective. Had she underestimated his independent nature? Bound by her own value system, Saja assumed the offer was too generous for anyone to refuse. She hadn't fully considered his viewpoint. He might be thinking, so much money, they must need me. But do I need them? In her eagerness, she had broken her own rules by rushing into this plan. Back on his ship, Thoreau listened as Samu briefed him on current events. She was programmed to prioritize news related to the environment, especially ocean-related events. He knew Saja had been on edge for days, but he assumed it was related to the proposed partnership. As he listened, he learned that several ships in the Pisces fleet were experiencing unprecedented technical failures, an anomaly for the state-of-the-art vessels recently added to the fleet. He couldn't imagine how anyone could have hacked those systems, but he could think of plenty of reasons why. The controversial method of surrounding and herding thousands of fish into massive nets, then scooping up the catch, sorting, processing, and packing non-stop, had drawn significant criticism. These vessels would often rendezvous with a shipping vessel to offload before continuing to fish. Hearing this, Thoreau was reminded of the harsh realities of Pisces' business model. At that moment, he knew he couldn't accept Saja's offer. The realization saddened him, knowing what it could mean for their relationship. Thoreau didn't want to lose her, but he couldn't lose himself to Pisces. Chapter 18. The Decision. Thoreau stopped at a bar on his way to Saja's office. It was around 3 in the afternoon, and the place was mostly empty. Just a few businessmen lingering over their liquid lunch, reluctant to face the afternoon grind. He ordered his usual drink and sat with his thoughts. He had rehearsed at least 10 versions of his rejection speech, trying to anticipate all the ways Saja might react. There was no easy way to do this. He would keep it simple and brief, then politely excuse himself. Thoreau genuinely hoped they could salvage something of their relationship, but knowing Saja, he was doubtful. Saja had been on edge all day. The recent turmoil at the company, coupled with the uncertain future of the new environmental division she had proposed, had left her feeling the strain. She still had no idea where Thoreau stood. They hadn't spent much time together since the night she made her offer, and what little time they did have was spent in bed, avoiding the inevitable conversation. When her assistant showed Thoreau into her office, she felt as stressed as the whales trapped in Thoreau's video. As Thoreau approached her desk, Saja caught a hint of the sweet scent of rum. Her heart pounded in her chest, and she felt the moisture gather under her arms and on her upper lip. She knew it was over. "I must keep it together," she told herself. I will keep it together." Looking at Saja, Thoreau realized she already knew. "God, this is bad," he thought. "This is the hardest thing I've ever done." But just as that thought entered his mind, a distant voice seemed to counter, "No, it is not." What does that mean? An image of a beautiful woman flashed in his mind. Who is that? Am I losing my mind? I shouldn't have had that drink. Damn, pull it together, man. He felt as if, the moment he opened his mouth, he would only stammer. A door in his mind had opened a crack, letting in a sliver of blinding light. The moment was pivotal. He needed clarity. In the final seconds of Thoreau's awkward approach, Saja managed to collect herself. "Don't speak. I know what you're going to say, and I can't bear to hear it right now. You need to leave. You need to leave right now. We will talk, but not now. I just can't." Without a word, Thoreau turned as if in a trance. He silently opened the door and, without closing it, stepped into an uncertain future. Saja quietly followed his steps, then violently slammed the door shut. She stormed to her desk and kicked the chair out of her way. Then, in a fit of rage, she grabbed a miniature gold replica of a Pisces cruise ship and hurled it across the room. It shattered the faceplate of her built-in aquarium, sending hundreds of gallons of water and thousands of dollars worth of exotic fish flooding into the room. Her thoughts raced. He must be out of his mind. What a fool! Doesn't he understand this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity? Did someone feed him inside information? No. This can't be happening. Saja knew she had lost, and she hated to lose. We thank you for listening to another installment of this series. There are many more chapters to come, so we hope you subscribe and hit the bell so you can continue to join Epyphany and her tribe as they navigate the stormy seas into the transition.